on, sir.
Okay, you have seen me, I guess. Right?
Yes,
So
sir.
first theory class I am taking
Yes, sir.
to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So in lab we met, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
what you learnt in last class? Last class what you studied?
So we did BOD and dissolved oxygen.
BOD and dissolved oxygen. Okay. What do you mean by DO, dissolved oxygen? What is dissolved oxygen?
So the oxygen that is sparingly soluble in the given amount sample of water.
Okay. So approximately how much amount it is soluble?
At room temperature,
7 to 8 ppm.
ppm of
So 7 to 8
Around
ppm at
8
room
ppm,
temperature.
right? 8 to 9 ppm.
Yeah.
So maximum capacity of water sample to hold the oxygen is 8 to 9 ppm. Okay. Then what is the significance of this dissolved oxygen? Can anybody respond?
Survival of aquatic animals.
Survival of aquatic animals. Okay. So these aquatic animals like fish and all, they will survive on this thing, dissolved oxygen, right? So they will consume dissolved oxygen and they will use it for respiration. Okay. Then whether the fishes will survive in polluted water. For example, if the water sample contains a lot of organic load, dissolved organic load, can you expect any fishes to survive in that?
No, sir.
no.
Why?
Because
Why?
the organic matter will consume the
Oxygen.
dissolved oxygen.
Dissolved oxygen. And oxygen holding capacity of that water will be very less, right?
Yes, sir.
Because already that impurity is there, a lot of impurity is there. Oxygen holding capacity is less. Dissolved oxygen is very less in that. And even if it is there, that will be consumed for the oxidation of this biologically oxidizable impurities. Okay. Now you tell me, what is this BOD?
So biological oxygen demand.
How will you define that biological oxygen demand?
Sir, it is the amount of oxygen that is required by the microorganisms to oxidize biologically oxidizable impurities present in 1 dm cube of water,
Water sample for how many days?
which is kept for the period of
5
5 days.
days.
5 days. Okay. So what is the principle you utilized to determine this BOD?
Iodometric titration.
Okay, it is iodometric titration, right? Then what is the principle behind this iodometric titration?
The liberated oxygen is used. The liberated iodine gas is used.
So how iodine is liberated here?
So when we titrate it with sodium thiocyanate, so with starch, then sodium iodide and sodium salt is released, and like we compare the amount of iodine gas that is released and the disappearance of the color, we reach the end point and we figure out.
Okay, what is the principle I'm asking? What is the principle? That is one known principle is there, no, for that?
Winkler's method.
Winkler's iodometric method, have you heard?
Yes.
Yes,
Winkler's
sir.
iodometric method you studied, right?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. So that Winkler's iodometric method only used in determination of BOD. So before you keep the water sample for incubation, you have to determine its DO. And after incubation for 5 days, you are going to determine the DO by using this Winkler's iodometric method. Okay. So by knowing the difference between D5 and D1 and by knowing the dilution factor, you can calculate this BOD. Right. So on what factors this DO depends on? On what all factors DO depends on?
Pressure.
For example, if the temperature increases, what happens to the dissolved oxygen?
Decreases.
Uses.
The dissolved oxygen content in the water sample decreases.
Decreases.
Okay. And if the impurity is present in water increases, what happens?
dissolved oxygen decreases.
Dissolved
Again, the content of
oxygen.
dissolved oxygen or percentage of dissolved oxygen decreases, right? For example, I'll take seawater and fresh water. Okay, so in which water sample the dissolved oxygen will be more?
Fresh water.
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 Fresh water, right? So fresh water will be having more ability to hold the dissolved oxygen than this seawater. Okay, so what kind of impurities you can estimate or find out by using this biological oxygen demand? What kind of impurities you can estimate?
Biologically oxidizable impurities.
Only biologically oxidizable impurities. For example, our sewage water contains many non-biologically oxidizable non-oxidizable impurities, like your inorganic impurities. Inorganic impurities are not oxidized by these biological oxidizing agents like bacteria or fungi, right? So your sewage water sample also contains these inorganic salts which is not oxidized by biological oxidizing agents like bacteria, right? How you are going to account for that? So by knowing BOD value, you are going to estimate only the biologically oxidizable impurities. But our water sample or sewage sample may also contain non-biologically oxidizable impurity along with this biologically oxidizable impurity. How to account for that? You know, any idea? So you will get the estimation of only biologically oxidizable impurities if you do the this thing BOD. What about non-oxidizable impurities? Biologically non-oxidizable impurities. How you are going to account for that? That also you have to take into account, right? So for that you have to determine one more parameter like chemical oxygen demand, that is COD. It is very similar to that. But here in this COD, you are going to estimate both oxidizable and biologically oxidizable and non-oxidizable impurities. You are going to get it here. You are going to estimate by using this chemical oxygen demand. Are you following this or not?
So
So in BOD, you are going to estimate only biologically oxidizable impurities like organic impurities. All the organic impurities are biologically oxidizable impurities. Whereas this sewage industrial sewage water contains biologically oxidizable as well as non-oxidizable impurities. Right. So for that, you have to go for one more parameter or one more method that is called as chemical oxygen demand. Here we are going to use one chemical oxidizing agent. But in case of BOD, what are the oxidizing agents? What are the oxidizing agents which brings about the oxidation of organic matter?
Bacteria,
aerobic
aerobic bacteria.
Microbials, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, microbial microbes are the oxidizing agents there. But here in chemical oxygen demand, we are going to use one strong oxidizing agent, that is a chemical like potassium dichromate. We are going to oxidize using potassium dichromate. But in this case, you are going to estimate both organic and inorganic matter. Organic matter is biologically oxidizable matter, but inorganic matter is biologically non-oxidizable matter. Right, both the impurities we are going to estimate here. Right, then how to do this chemical oxygen demand? You know that the wastewater treated by BOD may have non-biologically oxidizable impurities. This cannot be accounted in BOD. Okay. To oxidize such impurities, the sample of water has to be treated with strong oxidizing agent like potassium dichromate, right? So non-biologically oxidizable impurities can be oxidized by using this potassium dichromate. That is a chemical. That is why we are calling it as chemical oxygen demand, right? So what is the definition of this chemical oxygen demand? It is very similar to your biological oxygen demand. the amount of oxygen required by the waste material. So the waste material here is nothing but organic and inorganic. Organic is biologically oxidizable impurity and inorganic material is biologically non-oxidizable impurity. We are going to account for both here. Okay. The amount of oxygen required by the waste material present in 1 dm cube of water sample for their oxidation using acidified potassium dichromate solution. So in simple words, you are taking definite amount of water sample and you are adding definite amount of this potassium dichromate, and you are making you are oxidizing all the impurities present in that water sample by using this potassium dichromate, right? You have to estimate how much amount of potassium dichromate is consumed to oxidize all the impurities present in the water sample. That is going to be your COD, chemical oxygen demand. So that indicates how much amount of impurities are present in the water sample. Okay. So what kind of impurities you are going to estimate here then?
Biologically non-oxidizable impurities.
Organic and inorganic.
Organic and inorganic. Organic means biologically oxidizable as well as inorganic, biologically non-oxidizable impurities. Whereas in case of BOD, you are going to estimate only biologically oxidizable impurities, right? So which value you can expect more, higher value, COD or BOD?
COD.
COD values, because it accounts for both organic and inorganic matter, that is biologically oxidizable as well as biologically non-oxidizable impurities, right? So which is reliable then, BOD or COD?
COD.
COD, sir.
COD, right? So it indicates what all the impurities present, how much percentage of impurities are present in the water sample, right? So the definition of this COD is the amount of oxygen required by the waste material present in 1 dm cube of water sample, okay, for the oxidation of all the impurities present in the water sample, that is impurity present in 1 dm cube of water sample, by using acidified potassium dichromate, acidified potassium dichromate solution. Have you understood this? It is very simple. It is the amount of oxygen required by the waste material present in 1 dm cube of water sample for their oxidation using acidified potassium dichromate solution. Okay, from where this oxygen comes, the amount of oxygen required I told. From where this oxygen comes? What is the source of oxygen here?
Dissolved oxygen.
No, we are not utilizing dissolved oxygen here.
K2Cr2O7.
K2Cr2O7, that is oxidizing agent. It liberates nascent oxygen atoms, right? So this nascent oxygen atoms oxidizes all the impurities present in the water sample, right? Therefore, the amount of potassium dichromate consumed, if you estimate, so that corresponds to the amount of the impurities present in the given water sample. Are you following this or not? So
Yes.
our aim is to estimate the amount of potassium dichromate consumed for the oxidation of all the impurities present in 1 dm cube of water sample. If you do that, that amount of potassium dichromate consumed will be corresponding to the your COD value, that is the organic and inorganic impurities present in the given water sample, right? Have you understood this definition, meaning of this definition?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay. Yes, Nidhi, are you having any doubt?
No, sir, I understood.
Okay. So what are the importances of this COD test then? If you compare the time required for BOD and COD, how much time is required to get the BOD values? It is 5 days.
5 days.
You have to wait for 5 days, right? But COD values you can estimate in only 3 hours. That is why you are going to do this experiment in your lab. So in this engineering chemistry lab, you are going to perform this experiment. That means you are going to estimate, we are going to give you one water sample, you are going to estimate its COD value, right? The same experiment you are going to do this in the lab. Okay. The COD test is widely used for measuring pollution level of domestic and industrial wastewaters, industrial waste, right? So domestic waste usually it contains only this organic load, that is biologically oxidizable impurities, right? But industrial waste, it contains both biologically oxidizable as well as non-oxidizable impurity. Okay, so this can be used for both, but your BOD can be used for only domestic sample which doesn't contain any inorganic waste. Okay, and the time consuming for this COD estimation will be only 3 hours, whereas that for BOD is 5 days, right? So these are the importance of this COD estimation. And why this COD estimation is fast? Because we are going to use some catalysts here. Okay, silver sulfate and mercuric sulfate we are using as a catalyst. The role of silver sulfate is it catalyzes the oxidation of long chain fatty acids and pyridine like impurities. Okay, what is the role of catalyst usually? What are catalysts? What purpose you are using catalysts?
To speed up the
To
reaction.
speed up
To
reaction.
speed up the reaction, right?
Increase
So
rate
which
of
reaction you have
reaction.
to speed up? Oxidation reaction you have to speed up. Okay. Usually is long chain fatty acids and pyridine. You know what is this pyridine? Pyridine is nothing but one heterocyclic compound. You know what is this heterocyclic compound? Heterocyclic compounds are nothing but they contain heteroatoms like nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur in the ring, right? So benzene ring will be there. No, in that benzene ring, if you substitute one of the carbon atom by nitrogen, so that is called as pyridine. So pyridine is nothing but a heterocyclic compound. So like that, n number of heterocyclic compounds will be there, right? So they will be there in the sewage water. Their oxidation is very slow if you use only potassium dichromate. And if you add a catalyst like silver sulfate, that catalyzes the oxidation of the pyridine heterocyclic compounds like pyridine and long chain fatty acids, right? And also we are using one more catalyst, that is mercuric sulfate. The role of mercuric sulfate is it avoids the interference of chloride ions, Cl minus ions. Okay, so what is the nature of Cl minus ion? It will be easily oxidized to chlorine gas, right? So Cl minus will be easily oxidized to plus iodide ion. In your iodometric titration you studied, no? So I minus will be oxidized to what?
Iodine.
I2 in presence of mild oxidizing agents, right? So here also, if any chloride ions are there in the water sample, right, they also oxidized to Cl2. Cl minus will be oxidized to Cl2. Have you understood this? So if Cl minus ions are there, those Cl minus ions will consume this potassium dichromate for the oxidation to Cl2, right? So our estimation mainly depends on what? The amount of potassium dichromate consumed. Okay, so this Cl minus will consume some of the potassium dichromate, then our estimation will go wrong. Are you following this or not? So to avoid that, this mercuric sulfate is used. So this mercuric sulfate, what it does is, mercuric sulfate reacts with the Cl minus, it forms Hg2Cl2. Okay, so you know the nature of this Hg2Cl2. What is the nature of Hg2Cl2? Mercury chloride. Is it a sparingly soluble salt? You might be knowing this one, right? So it is a sparingly soluble salt. So Cl minus ions will be trapped in this form, Hg2Cl2. It cannot be ionized into Cl minus. Okay. So for that reason, we are adding HgSO4. This is very important point you should remember. We are adding two catalysts like silver sulfate and mercuric sulfate. So silver sulfate catalyzes the oxidation of pyridine and long chain fatty acids, and mercuric sulfate avoids the interference of chloride ion. So if chloride ion interferes in this reaction, what happens? It consumes extra potassium dichromate. So if extra potassium dichromate is consumed, our estimation, COD estimation will go wrong. That is why we are adding these two catalysts. Okay, how to determine this COD in the lab? The principle behind this experiment is you have to take known amount of water sample. For example, 25 cm of water sample whose COD is to be determined. You take it in the conical flask. To that you add known excess amount of potassium dichromate. So what you have to take? You take known amount of, for example, 25 cm of water sample, and then to that you add known excess amount of potassium dichromate. For example, 25 cm only you add. And you have to acidify it with sulfuric acid. Why you have to acidify with sulfuric acid? Come on. Why you have to acidify? Potassium dichromate acts as oxidizing agent in presence of acidic medium only, right? So potassium dichromate.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. To create the acidic medium, we are adding sulfuric acid, right? In that sulfuric acid only, we are dissolving these catalysts. What are the catalysts we are using? I told silver sulfate and mercury sulfate. So both we are adding. Right. So we are adding. We are taking 25 cm cube of water sample. To that we are adding known excess amount of potassium dichromate. Right. Remember these wordings. Known excess amount of potassium dichromate we are adding. We are creating acidic medium by adding 1 test tube of sulfuric acid, which contains two catalysts, that is silver sulfate and mercury sulfate. Right. Then to speed up the reaction, we are refluxing this mixture. Refluxing means heating. Right. So after some time, we are cooling that one. And now you have to estimate how much amount of potassium dichromate is consumed for the oxidation of all the impurities. Are you following this or not? I told known excess amount of potassium dichromate we are taking. Are you following my words?
Could you repeat once?
Come on, you have to respond. I told what I told. Known excess amount of potassium dichromate is added, and we are refluxing the mixture. So after refluxing, what happens? Some amount of potassium dichromate is consumed for oxidation of all the impurities present in the water sample. Right. So you have to estimate unconsumed potassium dichromate. Okay. So if you estimate unconsumed potassium dichromate, you can calculate how much amount of potassium dichromate is consumed for oxidation of all the impurities. Are you following this principle or not?
Yes, sir.
Following,
Yes,
sir.
Okay.
Following.
Okay. Known excess amount of potassium dichromate we are taking, and we are refluxing the mixture, and we have to estimate unconsumed potassium dichromate. If you estimate the unconsumed potassium dichromate, you can calculate how much amount of potassium dichromate is consumed. And that potassium dichromate consumed will be equivalent to what the percentage of organic and inorganic impurities present in the given water sample, or amount of the impurities present in the water sample. Then how to estimate this potassium dichromate, unconsumed potassium dichromate? Just by seeing, can you estimate? No. Can you weigh the volume, measure the volume? No, because it is in the reaction mixture. How can you do that? By volumetric titration you can do, right? So what is the nature of potassium dichromate? Potassium dichromate is the oxidizing agent. Okay, so you have to titrate it against one reducing agent. Okay, so the reducing agent what we are going to use here is ferrous ammonium sulfate. Okay, so you take that reflux reaction mixture and add one indicator, that is ferrine we are using. I'll explain this how ferrine indicator works here and all. Okay, and titrate against the standard ferrous ammonium sulfate solution. Okay, now you are estimating the amount of potassium dichromate consumed in terms of standard FAS solution. Right. So by knowing the amount of ferrous ammonium sulfate consumed, you can calculate how much amount of potassium dichromate consumed. Right. So by you have to do one more titration, like without this wastewater sample, you have to do the titration. Right. That is called as blank titration. And with wastewater, you are doing one back titration. Right. So this is called as back titration, and without wastewater sample. For example, if you are taking 25 cm cube of potassium dichromate, you take only 25 cm of potassium dichromate and titrate against sodium, ferrous ammonium sulfate using ferron as the indicator. Right. So one is with wastewater and other one is without wastewater. Are you following this? So first one is called as back titration and second one is called as blank titration. So the difference between blank titer value and back titer value will give you how much amount of potassium dichromate is consumed for the oxidation of all the impurities present in the given water sample. So that is the principle behind this estimation. Okay. Now, what are the reactions involved here? So you know that potassium dichromate acts as oxidizing agent in presence of this potassium dichromate acts as oxidizing agent in presence of sulfuric acid medium. We have added sulfuric acid. It forms potassium sulfate, chromic sulfate, water and nascent oxygen atoms. And these nascent oxygen atoms are responsible for the oxidation of our impurities present in the water sample, given amount of water sample. Okay, so some of these nascent oxygen atoms will react with the will oxidize all the impurities present in the water sample, and remaining nascent oxygen atoms we have to estimate, right? So that will be done by titrating against ferrous ammonium sulfate. Okay, so these nascent oxygen atom will react with the FeSO4 in the titration, right? So it forms FeSO4 and water, right? So the amount of FeSO4 consumed will be equivalent to the nascent oxygen atom generated there. Unconsumed nascent oxygen atom, you can say. These unconsumed nascent oxygen atoms.
Sir,
Yeah.
could you go a little more slow?
Pardon?
Could you go a little more slow? You're going very fast.
Is it?
Yes, sir. For me.
Okay. So our aim is to estimate what the amount of potassium dichromate consumed here, right? So how we are going to estimate the amount of potassium dichromate consumed? You cannot measure it because it is in the reaction mixture. The only method is by estimation. Okay. So you know that this potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent. You have to use one reducing agent for the redox titration. You do the redox titration. Okay. So in the redox titration, what happens? This potassium dichromate in presence of sulfuric acid, it forms a nascent oxygen atom. And some of the nascent oxygen atoms are consumed for the oxidation of impurities present in water sample. Okay. And remaining nascent oxygen atoms you have to estimate. So this will be estimated by titrating against FeSO4. Okay. So the amount of FeSO4 consumed will be equivalent to unconsumed potassium dichromate. That means the unconsumed nascent oxygen atoms, and these unconsumed nascent oxygen atoms will be equivalent to unconsumed potassium dichromate. So if you estimate this one, you can calculate back how much amount of organic and inorganic impurity is present in the given water sample. Okay, so these are the reactions involved there. Now we are going to use one indicator that is called as ferron indicator. This ferron indicator is nothing but 110 phenanthrene iron 2 complex. This 110 phenanthrene is nothing but it is a heterocyclic compound, and its complex with Fe+2 ions is called as phenanthrene indicator. Okay, and this phenanthrene indicator, it is usually reddish brown in color. Okay, so it is reddish brown in color, and in the titration it will be turned to bluish green. Okay, so in the titration it will be turned to bluish green. So that color change you have to observe and note down the reading. So this color change I'll explain mechanism of color change. I'll explain after this titration, right? So this is the principle behind this COD estimation. Remember, you have to take known amount of water sample, add known excess amount of potassium dichromate. So remember this wording, known excess amount of potassium dichromate. That volume should be known, but it should be in excess. Okay. So to that you add sulfuric acid, which contains two catalysts, that is silver sulfate and mercuric sulfate, and you have to reflux it. So after some time, you just have to cool it and add 2 to 3 drops of this ferron indicator. Okay, and titrate against FAS, that is standard ferrous ammonium sulfate solution, and note down the reading. So this is going to be your back titration. Similarly, you have to do one blank titration.
Could you repeat after adding mercury and silver sulfate?
Pardon?
What do we do after adding mercury and silver sulfate?
You have to do nothing there. You just have to reflux. So you are adding that one along with the sulfuric acid. Okay.
So what is
This
reflux?
mercury sulfate and silver sulfate are dissolved in sulfuric acid. One test tube, you have to add that one. Then you have to reflux it. That means you have to heat it. So after heating for some time, you have to cool it. So after cooling, you have to add 2 to 3 drops of indicator. Okay. And then titrate against a standard FAS solution. Right. So
Yes, sir.
you note on the FAS consumed for the oxidation of potassium dichromate, right? Then you have to perform on blank titration. This is called as back titration. Then you have to perform on blank titration. Blank titration is nothing but what? Without this water sample. That means you have to take 25 cm cube of only potassium dichromate and then add this sulfuric acid, which contains all these reagents, right? No need to reflux here because it doesn't contain any water sample, and titrate against sodium, this FAS, that is ferrous ammonium sulfate, by adding ferrine indicator. So note on the back titer value and black titer value, the difference will give you the amount of FaSO4 consumed, right? Amount of potassium dichromate consumed in terms of FAS, right? So by knowing this FAS value, you can calculate the amount of COD. Okay, I'll go to this exact experimental procedure. You will understand the principle better here again. Okay. So you have to pipette out 25 cm cube of wastewater sample in 250 cm cube conical flask, and you have to add one test tube of sulfuric acid, which contains mercuric sulfate and silver sulfate, right? And add 25 cm cube of potassium dichromate. All these reagents you have to take, right? So what all you have to take? 25 cm cube of water sample, one test tube of sulfuric acid, and 25 cm cube of potassium dichromate. You have to reflux it. Okay, so reflux it and then add 2 to 3 drops of ferrine indicator. The moment you add ferrine indicator, the original color of this ferrine indicator will be reddish brown, I told, right? The original color of ferrine indicator is reddish brown. The moment you add that reddish brown colored ferrine indicator to this reaction flask, right? So it color changes to bluish green. Okay, why its color changes to bluish green? Because in ferrine indicator is nothing but 1,10-phenanthroline iron 2 complex. Iron will be in Fe+2 oxidation state. Okay, so here the unconsumed potassium dichromate is there. This unconsumed potassium dichromate is the oxidizing agent. The moment you add this ferrine indicator to that unconsumed potassium dichromate, the Fe+2 present in this phenanthroline indicator, it will be oxidized to Fe+3, right? It will be oxidized to Fe+3. So once it oxidizes to Fe+3, it changes its color to from reddish brown color to bluish green, right? So the moment you add ferrine indicator to your flask, what is the color of the contents in the flask?
Reddish brown.
Come on.
Reddish brown.
Reddish brown.
No, it won't be reddish brown. The original color of phenanthroline indicator is reddish brown, right?
Yes, sir.
So in that reddish brown colored indicator, the oxidation state of iron will be Fe+2.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And if you add that one to the flask, in the flask, unconsumed potassium dichromate will be there.
So it will be
Are you
bluish
following
green.
this or not? What is the nature of potassium dichromate? It is oxidizing agent
Oxidizing. Yeah.
that oxidizes Fe+2 to Fe+3. Once it oxidizes Fe+2 to Fe+3, the color of the indicator changes to what? Bluish green.
Bluish green.
Yeah, it is bluish green. So before the titration, the color of the contents which are present in the flask are bluish green. Now you do the titration. against standard FAS solution which is taken in the burette. Okay, till the color changes from bluish green to reddish brown. Okay, what is the mechanism here? Iron will be in Fe+2 oxidation state, Fe+3 oxidation state in bluish green solution, and you are doing the titration when all the potassium dichromate is consumed by FAS solution. There will not be any oxidizing agent in the reaction flask. Okay, so if there is no oxidizing agent in the reaction flask, then again it changes from Fe+3 to Fe+2. The oxidation state of iron changes from Fe+3 to Fe+2. So in Fe+2 state, it is reddish brown color. Okay, so once the color changes from bluish green to reddish brown, you just stop the titration, note down the reading. That reading will be your back titre reading, and it is represented by Y. Okay, it is represented by Y. In another set of titration, you take only potassium dichromate. How much you have taken in the back titre value? Potassium dichromate you have taken in first titration. How much volume you have taken?
25 ml.
25 cm3. Okay, take same 25 cm3 of potassium dichromate. To that you add 1 test tube of sulfuric acid. Okay, so but you are not taking any wastewater here. 25 cm3 of wastewater you are not taking in this titration. Okay, you are not taking here. You are taking only the 25 cm3 of potassium dichromate. You are adding all other reagents except 25 cm3 of water sample. Right, and you are doing the titration against potassium standard FAS solution. Okay, using again ferrine indicator. The moment you add ferrine indicator to this blank solution, what is the color you are observing? The original color of ferrine indicator is reddish brown, where the oxidation state of iron is Fe+2. You are adding that indicator to the flask which contains oxidizing agent. Are you following this or not? So what happens there? That Fe+2 will be oxidized to Fe+3.
Fe+3.
The color changes to what?
Green.
Bluish green. Okay, that bluish green solution you are titrating against FAS. Okay, FAS what you are adding from the burette will react with potassium dichromate. Right. So when all the potassium dichromate is consumed, what happens? Again, somebody is talking. Okay, when all the potassium dichromate is consumed, there is no oxidizing agent in the reaction flask. That is why the oxidation state of Fe+3 changes to Fe+2 again. That is why the color change will be from bluish green to reddish brown, right? And this will be your blank titre value. So this we are going to note it as XCm3. So back titre value is YCm3 and back titration value will be XCm3. Are you following this or not? So which value is greater here then? X or Y? Come on.
Y.
Y. Y value is greater. Why? Why value?
Because it contains wastewater also.
No man, we are estimating the amount of potassium dichromate consumed, right? Here also you in back titration also you have taken 25 cm3 of water, and in blank titration also you have taken 25 cm3 of water, right? In back titration, some of the potassium dichromate is consumed for oxidation of the impurities present in the water sample, right? So the unconsumed potassium dichromate will be very less. That we are estimating in back titration by titrating against FAS, right? So the amount of potassium dichromate present here in this back titration will be less. Therefore, it consumes less FAS. Whereas in case of blank titration, are you using any water sample here?
No.
No,
You are
sir.
not using any water sample, right? So whatever 25 cm cube of wastewater you are taking, it will be there as such, right? Therefore, it consumes more amount of FAS, right? Then which value is higher here? Come on. Back titer value is greater or blank titer value is greater?
Blank title.
Blank.
Blank titer value is greater because there is no potassium dichromate consumed in that reaction. But whereas in back titration, whatever 25 cm cube potassium dichromate you have taken, out of that, some amount is consumed for oxidation of the waste present in the water sample. But here the 25 cm cube is as such. Therefore, blank titration is value is greater. Okay. Now, by knowing x and y, you are going for the calculation. So blank titer value is x cm cube, back titer value is y cm cube. Now, amount of potassium dichromate in terms of FAS, that is reacted with water sample, that means which is utilized for the oxidation of waste present in the water sample will be x minus y cm cube, right? So this is in terms of FAS, right? So you know that you should remember, always you should remember this kind of equivalences, how to write the equivalences. So in hardness of water, you have written one kind of equivalence, right? So here also in this titration also, you have to write one equivalence. That means 1000 cm cube of 1 normal FAS will be equivalent to 1 gram equivalent of oxygen. So 1 gram equivalent of oxygen is nothing but what? It is 8 gram of oxygen, right? So how can you write this equivalence? 1000 cm cube of 1 normal FAS, how much you are going to dissolve in this? How much amount of FAS crystals you are going to dissolve in this? I explained how to prepare the normal solutions. How do you prepare 1000 cm cube of 1 normal FAS? Come on. How do you prepare 1 normal sodium hydroxide?
We dissolve 40 grams in
40
1
gram of
liter
sodium
water.
hydroxide present in why 40 gram? What is the meaning of 40 gram? 40 gram of why you are going to take that?
Equivalent weight of sodium hydroxide.
Sodium is 40, right? The normal, in normal solution, you are going to consider the equivalent mass, right? Okay. So here the 1 gram equivalent of FAS, right, present in 1000 cm cube of its solution, right? So this gram equivalent of FAS will be equivalent to 1 gram equivalent of oxygen. 1 gram equivalent of oxygen is nothing but what? It is 8 gram of oxygen. Okay, so you should remember how to write this equivalence. 1000 cm cube of 1 normal FAS will be equivalent to 1 gram equivalent of oxygen, which is equivalent to 8 gram of oxygen, right? But in our titration, how much amount of FAS is consumed? How much amount of FAS is consumed in our titration? The FAS consumed, that is x minus y cm cube. Therefore, x minus y cm cube of Z normal. We don't know exactly one normal. We don't know exactly the normality of FAS, right? Therefore, x minus y cm cube of Z normal FAS solution will be equivalent to 8 into x minus y into Z divided by 1000. So this much gram of oxygen, right? So that if you calculate that one, we can consider it as a gram of oxygen, right? So this a gram of oxygen is for how much amount of water sample, how much amount of water sample you have taken in the beginning here? 25 cm cube. That means 25 cm cube of wastewater requires a gram of oxygen. Okay, 25 cm cube of water sample requires a gram of oxygen. Therefore, 1000 cm cube of water sample requires how much? So for 25 gram, 25 cm cube, a gram. Then for how much? For 1000. Right. So that is going to be C gram of oxygen. That is the amount of oxygen consumed in terms of grams for 1000 cm cube of water sample. So this is the calculation. Okay. Quickly, I'll just take my board and explain. You might be not following this PPT. Can you see this board? Can anybody unmute and tell me?
So the mouse is visible, but then like it's everything is gray.
Pardon?
The mouse is visible, but everything else is gray.
So this is not visible.
Yes, sir. I guess.
Whiteboard is not visible. Whatever I'm writing is not visible.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No,
Sir, it's
sir.
not visible.
Yeah, 1 minute. Now is it visible? No?
No, sir.
No, sir.
1 minute. Shit. Now is it visible?
No, sir.
No. Check now. Yeah. Okay. We know that I'll just explain how much time we are having. 4 minutes. Okay. In a conical flask, what you have to take? You take 25 cm of water sample. 25 cm of water sample whose COD is to be determined. To this, you add 25 cm³ of potassium dichromate, K2Cr2O7, potassium dichromate solution, and then add 1 test tube of H2SO4, and this contains so and so reagents, 2 catalysts, that is silver sulfate and mercury sulfate, and you have to reflux it. That means you have to heat it. So if you reflux it, what happens at higher temperature? All the impurities present in this water sample, will undergo oxidation in presence of potassium dichromate, right? That means some amount of potassium dichromate consumed here, but we have taken known excess amount of potassium dichromate here. Are you following this or not? Are you following this or not? You are taking 25 cm³ of water sample and 25 cm³ of potassium dichromate. You are creating acidic medium by adding sulfuric acid, right? You are refluxing it. The impurities present in the water sample will undergo oxidation by using or by consuming some of the potassium dichromate. Have you understood this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So some of the potassium dichromate is consumed and there will be unconsumed potassium dichromate. Our aim is to find out what unconsumed potassium dichromate. For example, if it consumes 15 cm³ of potassium dichromate out of 25 cm³, so remaining will be some 10 cm³ of potassium dichromate will be there. Okay. So this 10 cm³ of potassium dichromate you have to estimate. How you are going to estimate that one? you have to do the titration, right? So you have to titrate it against potassium dichromate. You have to titrate it against ferrous ammonium sulfate. You titrate it against ferrous ammonium sulfate by taking it in the burette. So in the burette you take FAS and titrate it against ferrous ammonium sulfate by adding 2 to 3 drops of ferroin indicator. You add 2 to 3 drops of ferroin indicator and titrate it. Right. So this ferroin indicator is nothing but what? 110 phenanthroline. I wrote the structure also. Iron 2 complex, Fe plus 2 complex. 110 phenanthroline, Fe plus 2 complex. Okay. So its original color is reddish brown. Its original color is reddish brown. The moment you add this 110 phenanthroline iron 2 complex to this flask, its color changes to bluish green. Why color changes to bluish green? Come on. Why it changes to bluish green?
Iron is oxidized.
This Fe plus 2 is
Plus 2
oxidized
to plus
in
3.
presence of
The
potassium
iron
dichromate
gets
to
oxidized to Fe3.
Fe plus 3. That is why you are going to get bluish green color solution. So to this bluish green color solution, you add FAS solution from the burette. FAS solution from the burette. Till what? Till the color changes from bluish green to again reddish brown. Bluish green to again reddish brown. Right. So in presence of potassium dichromate, it changes its color to bluish green. When all the potassium dichromate is consumed by this FAS, there will not be any oxidizing agent. Okay. So that is why it changes its color from bluish green to reddish brown. That is the end point. You just note on that burette reading. Right. So this is called as back titer value. Back titer value. That is represented by X. Right. So what you did here, you have taken 25 cm of water sample, 25 cm of potassium dichromate, you added 1 test tube of sulfuric acid with the catalyst and refluxed it. Some amount of potassium dichromate is consumed there. Okay. To find out the unconsumed potassium dichromate, you have added ferroin indicator and titrated against FAS solution. So this is first part. Have you understood this first part? Understood or not?
Understood, sir.
Yes,
Okay. So in blank titration, so this is back titration. In blank titration, blank means you are not going to take any wastewater sample. Okay. So what all you have to take? You have to take only 25 cm cube of potassium dichromate and add 1 test tube of H2SO4 and add 2 to 3 drops of ferroin indicator. Ferroin indicator. Again you titrate against FAS. Again you titrate against FAS. The moment you add ferroin indicator to this flask, its color changes to bluish green. Right. That bluish green colored solution is titrated against standard potassium standard FAS solution. Okay. Till the color changes from bluish green to what?
Reddish brown.
Reddish brown. Okay, reddish brown. Note on the reading, that is going to be your blank titer value. Right. So this blank titer value minus back titer value will give you amount of K2Cr2O7 consumed, K2Cr2O7 consumed in terms of FAS. So this X minus Y corresponds to the amount of potassium dichromate consumed. You just remember that. Okay. So by knowing this X minus Y value, you have to calculate or you have to estimate the COD value. Okay. It's already time up. Tomorrow I will explain this calculation and this titrations once again. It is little bit confusing, right? So I'll explain it once again.
Hello. हेलो मैं
Okay,
विजय
sir.
बोल रहा हूँ रिलायंस से। आपकी क्या मैं मदद कर सकता हूँ सर? हम तिरमोहन बोल रहे हैं। हाँ ठीक है, बताइए अपनी प्रॉब्लम बताइए सर। हमारा पैसा बहुत कट रहा है, एकदम झाटे मेरी लाल है। हम कल से इसकी बहन की चोट में फोन
Hey,
मिला
who is
मिला
this?
के रिलायंस वालों को थक गए। वो कहते हैं
Whose
प्रतीक्षा
mic
में
is this?
आप
Can you
रहिए।
mute this?
आप मेरी बात तो सुनिए पहले। आप अबे तय मेरी बात सुन, भोसड़ी के कल से सुन रहा।
Can you mute this?
Sir, we don't know who
I
that
don't
was.
know who that is. The person
Who is
from
that, you know?
every class.
Somebody's,
No, sir.
No.
somebody's hacking, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, somebody's background noise it is.
I don't think that person is from our class.
He's not from your class, sir?